Hello, welcome. We're going to look at another female notable Christian. Maybe one that you're familiar with, maybe not actually. Some of these I've not heard of. But this lady, if I pull my notes up and I can still see the chat, is Catherine of Sienna. And her significant dates, she was quite young, I guess, relatively, when she passed away. She was born in 1347 and she died in 1380. So she was the youngest of 24 children. Oh, yes, this is obviously prior to the TV being invented. And when she was 12, as she was then, Catherine Benincasa, her parents began to make arrangements for her to be married. She had other plans, even at this young age. And without their knowledge, she had some 5 years earlier, that puts her at 7, taken, not secretly, but a private vow of chastity. And she had, even at that young age, set her heart upon entering the convent and dedicating her life to Christ. You're right, Alma. So this is a quote. This is what she said to her parents anyway. It would be easier to melt a stone than to tear this holy resolution out of my heart. So sweet. You only waste time in trying to fight against it. So she was quite forthright, even at that young age. And her parents were quite devastated. I mean, it just crossed my mind that they had 23 other opportunities to get, anyway. They cried over it bitterly. And her father, however, surprised everybody by accepting his daughter's commitment that she'd made. My dearest daughter, it is far from us to set ourselves against the will of God in any way, and it is from him that your purpose comes. This is what he told his daughter. Keep your promise and live as the Holy Spirit tells you to live. We shall never disturb you again in your life of prayer and devotion or try to tempt you from your sacred work. And he then made doubly sure by telling his other children and his wife basically not to put any obstacles in Catherine's path. So he was a dye maker, her father. His name is Italian. It's, I don't know. Okay. It looks like it is. It just looks like Giacomo, but either way, he was a dye maker. He didn't spend time worrying about how people pronounce his name. It's just silly. So he made some small space provision for her near to his workrooms, which were in the basement of their home. And this was a place, essentially, where she could find some peace, quiet, solitude within the midst of 23 other children. I mean, some of them must have left home by then. It was a pretty busy house that she lived in. And she used a plank of wood for a bed and a wooden log for a pillow. She's creating herself like a cell in a convent, but I'm not sure they're that extreme, really. Wooden log for a pillow, everyone. There you have it. So it was a 10 by 16 foot room, and some steps led from this room to a small barred window which overlooked a pretty narrow lane, which was behind the family home. And she spent 3 years in this self-made cell. And she came out only to attend the early morning mass at the Dominican church, which was in her village. And she prayed relentlessly, ceaselessly. She ate only bread, water, and herbs. And she slept 2 hours per night. Oh, my gosh. Okay, she also, don't try this at home, kids. She also scourged herself with an iron chain 3 times a day. Once for her sins, once for the sins of all living people, and once for the souls in purgatory, because as you can imagine, in the 14th century, she was most definitely Roman Catholic. So this was the custom anyway of her, the spiritual father that she had, which was Saint Dominic. And her mother was pretty much appalled, definitely uncomfortable with her daughter's extreme punishment, self-denial, etc. And she tried, even after her husband had told her, don't put any obstacles, she tried every means that she could conceive of to subdue her daughter. But all of these efforts came to naught. So in the tradition of the Desert Fathers, whom she had read, vociferously, she had read about them, Catherine's underground chamber, cell, became her desert, as it were. And she was immovable. She was she was committed to the cause. She went on this way. So after 3 years in this room, which was subterranean, as I said, she rejoined her family, resumed her duties, domestic duties in the home, and officially joined the Third Order of St. Dominic. So as a Dominican tertiary, she was not required to live in the convent, and instead she stayed at home. And she dedicated her life at that time to caring for the victims of the Black Plague, and that killed 80,000 in Sienna, where she is from, obviously, just in that place, 80,000. And that included her own sister, her own brother, and 8 of her nieces and nephews. When she wasn't doing that, she also visited local prisons. She attended public executions where she would, provide consolation or some solace with prayer to those accused, or the convicted, I guess, at that stage. So she continued the fervent and ceaseless, I guess, prayer. She continued with that. And as she got into her late 20s, she began to hear a repetitive, recurring command from God to serve the greater public. And she initially, quite a few of the women that I've told you about, she initially questioned this. Go forth without fear in spite of reproach, is what God told her. I have a mission for thee. He was speaking King James at the time, before the King James. I have a mission for thee to fulfill. Wheresoever thou goest, I will be with thee. I will never leave thee, but will visit thee and direct all thy actions. So this mission, this job, this commission that she'd been given was to reform the church and restore the papacy to Rome. So similar to Bridget of Sweden, who we will get around to, Catherine dedicated what was left of her life at that stage to the relocation of the papacy from Avignon, where it had been at that time for around 75 years, to Rome, which she considered its rightful place. So she began by writing pretty forthright, bold letters to Gregory XI, who was Pope, encouraging him, urging him, on this crusade. And this is a quote: press on and fulfill with true zeal and holy what you have begun with holy resolve, concerning your return and the holy and sweet crusade, and delay no longer, for many difficulties have occurred through delay, and the devil has risen up to prevent these things being done, because he perceives his own loss. Up then, Father, and no more negligence. Pardon me, Father, that I've said so many words to you. You know that through the abundance of the heart the mouth speaketh. I am certain that if you shall be the kind of tree I wish to see you, nothing will hinder you. So we're now in 1376. And she travelled from home, Sienna, to Avignon. And this was to visit Gregory the Pope. And that, obviously, face to face, as it were. She didn't have any rank. She didn't have any wealth. She didn't have an education, even. Despite all of this, she was confident in her, entry into the palace, and she spoke through an interpreter with the Pope, and she exhorted him to lay aside his own self-interest and return to Rome. She is really bold. She said, "Do not be a boy, be a man." Her rhetoric, it wasn't without risk, but ultimately she was successful. And quite, some weeks after her visit, Gregory sailed from Avignon to Genoa, where he was hesitant at that stage and a little fearful. And he didn't wish to continue on to Rome. And then he spoke with Catherine again. Their conversation this time wasn't recorded. However, it is evident from the fact that he continued on from Genoa to Rome that she had again been successful in persuading him. So now he was safely back in Rome. Catherine turned her attention to, engendering support for him elsewhere. So at this time, I don't know how to describe it. Well, corruption, certainly, within the Roman Catholic Church. It was pretty rife. And the principalities and republics of then Italy, as it were revolting. They were, rising up against the papacy. And because of this, her mission was, pretty dangerous. At one point, she was nearly murdered. So that counts as pretty dangerous by a mob. That were incensed when she was sent by the Pope as an envoy of peace to Florence. And she had a small entourage with her. They were in a garden, and a whole heap of men, a big group of men, descended on her and the entourage. They had clubs, they had swords. They weren't just holding them, they were swinging them. And they were basically screaming her name angrily, in rage. And this is what she did. She kneeled in front of them, and she said this, and she wasn't afraid, or she didn't sound afraid. She said, "I am Catherine. Do to me whatever thou wilt, but I charge you in the name of the Almighty to hurt none of these who are with me." Due to her lack of a resistance, as it were, she just basically kneeled down. They put their swords away. They were a little bit confused by it. And she stayed on the ground and said, "I have always longed to suffer for God and his church. So if you have been appointed to kill me, do not be afraid to do so." And then they really lost their nerve and just, left. Not long after this, the rulers of Florence signed the peace treaty that she was there as an envoy for. And it's apparent that she was somewhat disappointed that she had not been able to be martyred, I guess, to give her life for God in that day in that garden. She says, "I burned with the desire to suffer for the glory of God and the salvation of souls, for the reform and welfare of the Holy Church." And this was within a letter that she wrote to her confessor, whose name was Raimondo del Vigna, maybe. I don't know. This is a couple of days later, after the drama in the garden. "My heart almost burst with the desire to give my life." That being said, she accepted, and she was aware that that martyrdom wasn't actually God's will for her. And it was evident to her, certainly, she had a clarity that God's mission was within the pretty hectic world of politics as it was at that time. So now we get on to the time of Gregory's successor, who was Urban VI. And he made pretty good use and relied upon her negotiation and peace-making skills. And he too summoned her to Rome. And this was during the Great Western Schism of 1378. He and Clement VII, who, Clement was the one who had re-established the papacy in Avignon. It all does get a bit complicated around about these kind of decades. Yeah, basically they fought for supremacy, I guess. So she now dedicated the rest of her life, to working tirelessly, really, in support of Urban VI for the reformation of the church. So, it's pretty unusual for a woman, for a young woman, for a young uneducated woman, for a young uneducated, non-wealthy, not of any social standing woman, to serve as a political envoy. And certainly during this kind of time of great upheaval like that, it's pretty amazing. And there are 300 of her letters which are published and preserved, and they illustrate the determination, the massive determination and the conviction and the lack of fear that she had, as well as displaying pretty well her negotiation skills and the ability to influence even the most powerful, the most unpredictable, political figures of that day. I mean, it's pretty well observed, I guess, that Urban VI was not an easy man, put it charitably. He was prone to volatile, also less frequent, but violent outbursts. And her ability to calm him and also persuade him, as well as countless other high-ranking officials, because of course there are many advisors and stuff like that. It's again testament to her determination and the zeal which she put into the job that God had given her. So she died at 33, and shortly before this, she dictated what became known as her dialogue, and this was the recounting or the recording of a series of visions and reflections that she experienced during a heightened state from God. Before she went into these ecstasies, I guess, she instructed her secretary to listen to the words that just poured out of her mouth while she was in the throes, I guess, of this experience. And the result, she went through 4 consecutive days of speaking these words and having them transcribed. She was pretty much physically incapacitated. She was able to speak, obviously. And after these 4 days, she, the secretary was able to produce a manuscript which centered on God's mercy. And within her lifetime, obviously it was a pretty short life, but this book was produced and circulated among, friends, those who learned from her, etc. But after she died, it was then distributed, printed and distributed to a much wider audience. And it was recognized as divinely inspired teaching. And she came to be esteemed as a teacher of divine knowledge, like a Holy Spirit inspired. So during her 33 years, she continued with this self-denial, the spiritual practice of self-denial. She didn't eat or drink, basically. Often the only thing she had was the Eucharist. That was the one meal in a whole 24-hour period. And it's been suggested at a much later date, obviously, nowadays, as it were, that she could well have suffered from anorexia. She was constantly malnourished, very thin, and pretty weak. And as things progressed, she deteriorated to the point like quite rapidly, where she was bedridden, and she would only get out of her bed to attend mass each morning, which was in her home. And she was too weak at this stage to even walk like the few steps, back to her room and her bed under her own steam. So she was often carried back to her bed, which was a plank of wood, I may have told you. So she still had a determination. Despite her physical weakness, she still had a spiritual strength. And the last political kind of drive, I guess, that she orchestrated was from her deathbed. And at that time, she wrote to Urban VI, and she wrote her last letter, begging him to remain firm and to, have strength against those who, I don't know about only she saw, but those bent on destroying the church. May your holiness understand what has to be done. Courage, courage, for God does not despise your desire and the prayers of his servants. And she signed this last letter, sweet Jesus, Jesus, love. And then, 12 weeks later, she died whilst praying audibly, i.e. out loud, right up until the last. And she was praying for the church and for the Pope. So within the Roman Catholic Church today, she is a saint, as it were. She's honoured in that way. And she's remembered, for many, many contributions that she's made to Christianity. Her letters, which are articulate above what one would expect for somebody of, no education. Lots and lots of them, actually. And the visions and the revelations that she received and recorded. Also, her, I won't say unique, but pretty unusual ability to influence like some of the most powerful men. Well, the most powerful men of that time. Beyond that, her courage, her strong will, her obedience to what, the mission that she was given at a very young age. And that was, she was indefatigable. She wasn't, she wasn't open to any dissuasion. She took courage, and she went against what was the prevailing tradition. She went against her parents who came around. Obviously, she was pretty formidable as a woman of faith. So that's that. So now I just got rid of those notes. Whoops, sorry. What's going on in the chit chat? Totally irrelevant to the stream. Okay. Yes, sir, Mr. Armour of God, sir. Okay, I shall avert my case. Oh, yes, sorry, I just said that. Okay, I don't know how I'm going to quite see if there are any questions, though, whilst I'm studiously looking away from the chat. I see a lull. Is it safe to come back now? Okay, anyone who doesn't behave is getting jogged on pretty lively, as we say in London. But if you don't have any questions, like, it is all right, because I don't have a life, but I do have a little bit of a life that I could be getting on with at pretty late in real life for someone who's got speaker school tomorrow. I got a little trinity of lols. Sorry, I do need to laugh. But never mind. Like waiting for a bus. You wait all that time and then three come along all at once. Islam is a fallacy. Well done, Lorixon. Filbert. You're absolutely correct. I don't quite understand your second. Protester of Christian. Okay. Yes, she was. She had a log for a pillow. Just want to run that by anyone who thinks they're tough. Like, thank you, Lorixon. I will as soon as I don't have any like real life stuff to be getting on with anymore. Mohammed. Oh, Mohammed, don't do that, please. Let me just see that. Okay, Mohammed, you're on like a little warning, I reckon, because I don't know what you're arguing about, but I don't actually care. Don't speak like that to anyone in my chat, please. Thanks, lots of love, etc. You right, Gerard? Thank you. That's kind. Thank you very much. No, John, they don't. They don't. I mean, I'm trying to think at 12. I mean, I didn't have 23 brothers and sisters to get away from. But, yeah, I can't. I mean, yeah, it's a pretty arduous life. Like, just the sleeping on a plank for 2 hours a night and only eating bread and water. And, yeah, it's pretty radical. I feel like they do, though, John. They do make them like Catherine somewhat. Like there are not only like cloistered life, as it were. There are some pretty amazing people in the church. But yeah, I mean, I don't know about that beating yourself 3 times a day with an iron chain, though. I mean, I feel like Jesus has taken care of that bit, but potentially there was a different understanding of stuff, like in those days. Bill, if you send me the deets in a comment in that comment section, maybe I'll see if I can do some research and do a bid on them. Yeah, there's some. Do you know what? It seems to me, oftentimes, those who like don't get any recognition are the ones who, like tirelessly. Chris. If only with a rod of iron, mate, I would be sorting this stuff out. Mohammed, like, do you not stop for a second to imagine if I know people like in real life? Like, what do you think this is? Would you like to talk? I mean, no one else can see your comment, but would you like to talk about those kind of subjects? Because I feel like that's maybe what your prophet was up to. So I really don't want to like have to go full K, but like, please do get some manners pretty quickly in the next 250 seconds, because I'm not in the mood. Because you may know that my life is like, I've got a little bit of a, upheaval at the moment, and I'm trying to still do stuff for Jesus. So maybe like you could just take it down a notch. What do you reckon? Thank you. Lots of love. Charles. Okay, I will go and cry somewhere else. Everyone, we all love Mohammed. That's not that one. The one in the chat, obviously. Yeah, that's true, John. Even though it's in a bit of KJV-ishness. Yeah. Yeah, he's just having a little, taking a little breather, Chris. No, no, it's not just you. Don't panic, Chris. I mean, it's fine. But yeah, it's nice. I like to see Mohammed. I do. I like to see him in the chat. I really do, because like it must seep in some of it. You know what I mean? Eventually, God can save to the uttermost. So if he's got his eye on Mohammed, then you know what I mean. Healthily skeptical. I don't know who that is. I know who Shabba Ranks is. I feel like that's not what you're asking me. I just have no clue. I don't know who that is. Sorry. Yeah. Nice one, John. No, you're absolutely right, Lorixton. It's not that we can't. It's that we are a royal priesthood. That's what the Bible says. So we're all, in one respect or another, like it's given for some to be teachers, some to be, shepherds, apostles. evangelist. I can't remember. Ephesians it is. It's on my channel. I feel like it's the blurb somewhere in the about section. But yeah, like especially, such a shame. Like it doesn't seem to matter what church it is in terms of like which branch. There's a willingness to cede to secularism that I'm not wholly comfortable with. Like I feel like once you give that ground away, I am for the, like, obviously, well, not obviously, for the separation of church and state because we just shouldn't or ought not to have a situation where the church like has to bend the knee, let's put it that way, because do me a favour. Oh, okay. Healthily skeptical. He's the guy with the stick, the like cane, the walking, like the shepherd's tutor. No? Oh my God. It's a badge of honour to be called that by a Muslim, surely. Someone scream hypocrite, please. Where's silly hat? Yeah, I feel like maybe I do know. Did he call me an Edomite before? Did he say I was red like Esau? That was it. If it's that one, what do I think? I'm not, just like, oh my God, I'm not really big on like massive insults being thrown at me. But it does make me feel like, not that I'm winning, but if someone's a genuine like loon just talking rubbish, you don't feel the neck like they're not going to get insulted really, more than a little mockery. Like if you touch a nerve, mostly that, like if someone hasn't got an argument, that the person, as soon as you're being insulted, you know that they don't have any further argument to give, and they go for ad hominem. Yeah, give him a go. I mean, forgiveness in it and all that. Yeah, but I'll do the honours this time if he starts again, because I don't know. I keep telling everyone it's nice to be nice. All right. Isn't that the beginning of a song? Oh my God. There's no limit. Come on, there is no limit. 7 times 70. 490 for anyone who's slow on the uptake. Yeah, maybe I got a different. Oh, Andre, he looks like the guy out. Oh, what's that band? Outcast. Anywho, I don't know. I don't know them well enough to have an opinion, but I feel like now I've seen them on COE a long time ago. Yeah, the Nation of Islam, when they were there, what absolute charmers. Oh, did I say charmers? I meant something that I'm not going to say. Is it? Repent, please don't say. No, repent. We had ours. I got scared. I thought I literally, I know that we've had ours because I got a Mahusive card from my daughter. So yeah, we have it on different days. We've all got to keep the greeting card industry going somehow. Yeah, Lorix, and it is very similar to. It's not even about like an analogy between it and communism. If you look, like with like a slightly askance, it's very similar. Very similar. Has the same like in effect godlessness and very little hierarchy, as it were, just top and then the plebs kind of thing, and committees. How they love a committee. Healthily skeptical. You've been saying you're coming down for how long? Just do it if you can, obviously. Yeah, I don't know. When I did read the Quran, I was if I'd have read it years ago, I mean, I like books, that's the problem, like good books. But because I was a Christian mainly when I read it, it didn't feel right at all. It gave me like a nauseous like a feeling. Oh, are you coming tomorrow? Oh, go on then. Get to bed. What are you waiting for? Go. Get up the wooden hill to Bedfordshire, as it were. But yeah, I will be there tomorrow. I'm not going to stay up all night as I usually 2. Okay, any more for any more last orders, please? Because I have a report to give in after this. Duet. Is there a differences to gay? Bless you. Laters. Skeptical. Right. Yes. Any very teensy wincy questions? I don't know what that means, 21 Olympus months, but watch out. Night, Chris. Oh, I like it. It's nice to be nice. I can't even just be. I am going to do my report. I'm just. Yes, well done. Thank you. Okay, I should have mentioned it, but yeah. Thank you, Lorixton. God sends them down. Like we do have some pretty decent people there now. Like it's weird though, because when I see videos from ages and ages ago, I'm like, oh my gosh, what happened to them? You know, like you just. But luckily, between us all, we're all kind of in touch with everyone. So that's good. But I feel definitely that God wants someone with a massive gob, because like Jay Smith left as Bob got there, and then Bob went off for a little while, and I got there. It's not going gidink. Right, first button is done then, just for fun. And he looks sweet. Yes, he always does. As it starts to get warm, and he pretends, Paperboy, that it's some other reason than it's a bit chilly out. And I'm like, but bro, you got the bubble hat. Big up the bubble hat. So I don't know, John. I would love to know the answer to that. Not at the moment, certainly. But yeah. But this will be my last question. Who do I enjoy debating at Speaker's Corner? I quite like speaking with Hashim. I've had some very decent conversations with visitors. They're not always recorded, but it's a different thing. Like debating with Hashim, for example, I have no real confidence of influencing his decision for Islam. But then I'm aware that it's not him who I'm trying to reach, it's people watching it. So whereas with visitors, I feel the fact that they've approached me or are listening, if they are like genuinely, you know, paying attention and asking relevant questions, then I enjoy that. And I like most of our best conversations happen afterwards when like I can round up some Christians and remove them to the pub. We have some really lovely like edifying conversations there, but yeah, it's a bit difficult to record it because some of them are such prima donnas, darling. But yeah, I guess Hashim, Mohammed Hijab, I've had some pleasant conversations with him. Mansour, to some extent. Adnan, I quite like speaking to Adnan. It's difficult to just withhold your own personal feelings about what you may or may not have heard them saying in the past, in terms of I don't know, the age at which females should become ladies, as it were. Anyhow, on that, how can I end on that? What I'm going to end on is this. Oh, that's a bit brave, isn't it? Just saying that without having anything at all. Okay, I got it. God will meet you wherever you are. Does not only when you're unsaved, but even once you're saved. Like I've spoken to a number of people over the years who have said things to me, and one of them, like, is a family member. Like, I've said things like, "Oh, I'm not going to church because no, I'm not really living that well at the minute, and I feel a bit embarrassed or a bit funny to go in," or something like that. You could save them all for whilst I'm giving my report, basically, and send them by pigeon. Shucks. Yes. So God will meet you where you are. Like, we're all sinners. Like, there's just zero exception to that rule. Like, and if you ever feel like you're too embarrassed to tell God anything, the comforting and horrifying thing is he already knows. He was there when you did it. He was there when you thought it. He was there when you said, I'm never doing that again. He was there when you did it again the fourth time. So, and the fifth, third, second, whatever. The point is, he doesn't love you any less at those times, because then his love would be less than perfect. And then you could imagine a God whose love was perfect, who would be greater than him, and therefore your imaginary God would be greater than the real. We're not going to go metaphysical, but what I'm going to say is he doesn't ever love you less or more than he does all the time. It's a constant, because it's perfection. There is no less, there's no not quite as perfect, because it wouldn't be perfect, and his love is. So go easy on yourself, because, and also, like, the thought that God may be punishing you right now, you know, if people have died, like for me, people have died very recently, like repeatedly, over and over, and like, but the thought that maybe God is punishing me or teaching me a lesson, or like, I don't know, like causing these things to happen. I feel like I was having this conversation yesterday or the day before. No, all the punishment was poured out onto Christ on the cross. So Old Testament is a different ball game, because that was a different set of rules, because I'm confident of this. Yeah, it doesn't mean like just go mental and do what you want, but it does mean that you can't let the fact that you've slipped up mean that you're not. It's the not getting back up again. That's the thing. And it says he is made perfect in your weaknesses. He's already perfect. His strength is displayed more perfectly in your weaknesses. And Paul says, therefore, I can't remember now, glorify in my weaknesses and my shortcomings, etc. So there you go. I don't know where I went on that, but thank you, Freedom Fighter. Yeah, just don't be so hard on yourselves, because I can do that for you if you turn up in the comment section and start slating my admins. You know what I mean? Anyhow, lots of love. But I wouldn't go anywhere fiscally, like financial. I don't. I'm what I like to call a grown-up. So I just look at my own accounts. Anyhow, I was trying to end on a bit of Jesus, but I will end on a bit of Jesus by saying, keep it Jesus, people. Everyone knows Jesus. If they don't, they should get to know him pronto tonto, because the world could be ending anytime. Anytime. You're very welcome, John. Everyone's always welcome around here. No, you said fiscal. Oh, but I'm fine. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm not going into it on the stream, but thank you very much for asking. It's very kind. Your concern is appreciated. However, again, a bit of a grown up over here. So yeah, as required is the answer. All right then, lots of love, and I'm going to press the button and see you later. Ciao.